On my kicker tonight, I invite you to a little discussion about tribalism in Kenya. Yes, I know we prefer to talk about that subject in hushed tones, but let us for a moment drop that fake hypocritical cowardice and talk about that little tree in the middle of our collective Garden of Eden. After all, we not only eat the fruits of that tree of tribalism, but indeed some have audaciously turned up with electric blenders to turn the forbidden fruit into some very tasty juice. And yes, how about sipping it right away under the same tree? So fellow Kenyans, tuache kujifanya for a moment. Let us talk about tribe. Okay then, I'll go first. I am a Maasai, pure and proud, born and bred. Now, in the context of our discussion on tribalism in Kenya, I offer that there'll be very little to accuse the Maasai of. In Kenya's politics of tribal numbers, the Maasai are few and quite frankly, often don't even give a strand of an oxtail on how the heck the contests of political numbers go. For a Maasai, it is Inkera, that is women and children, or Inkishu, that is cows, or Enkai, that is God, the giver of rains. The rest really don't matter that much. And they have not quite cared for a while. Indeed, our forefathers straddled the land back in the era of greatness, leaving behind beautiful names that include Enkare Nairobi, that is the place of cold waters that became this our capital. Then they went around, even signed two really bad non-reciprocal agreements with the British colonialists in 1904 and 1911. And that is how I ended up being born in Transmara, Narok County, and not Uasin Gishu County, the original home of my Uasin Gishu clan and my family. End of my story. What is yours? And by the way, what's your tribe? Now, early this week, a judgment from the High Court spoke in plain terms about tribes. It spoke about the Kikuyu tribe, and it spoke about the Kalenjin tribe. The context being the recruitment of some 1,406 Kenya Revenue Authority assistants. The judge, William Musyoka, found that out of the 1,406 KRA revenue assistants recruited, a whopping 785 came from two communities, that is the Kalenjin and the Kikuyu. The judge observed that in a country of over 40 tribes, this constituted a 56% lion's share for only two communities. The judge broke it down further, detailing that in terms of the specific areas, the majority of recruits came from the home area of, listen to this, the chairman of the Kenya Revenue Authority, Anthony Mwaura. The judge then observed that KRA is dominated by the two communities, ostensibly because of their closeness to power. Now, Justice Musyoka declared the appointments as unconstitutional, citing various articles that the skewed recruitment had violated. Now, the judge's hands were tied, and he stated as much. He could not nullify the recruitment. His was to assess the process, and he found it flawed, and so stands indicted. We are now left with a judgment that must be issued to KRA and the government as a certificate of bad conduct. Tribalism should not be that blatant and that shameless. For a National Revenue Authority to recruit a SIF for a mission of collecting ethnic marbles should be found plain below the standards of nationhood. Yet, fellow Kenyans, as we agreed earlier, tusijifanye, let us talk tribe. Let us not pretend. This is how we have always conducted ourselves. It was just that KRA forgot to draw the curtains. What are the chances that that is the trend right across government departments, especially in a situation where top leadership has invoked shareholding rights? How about simple questions of conscience like, if two communities take 56%, what happens to 41 other communities? And all the while, how do the rest of the so-called fellow countrymen actually feel in the face of such blatant bad table manners? Justice Musyoka may not interfere with the dining table, but it has held the mirror for Kenyans to look at their collective, ugly tribal face. Yet a few facts of life must hold. Tribalism, just like colonialism and just like racism, including apartheid, is not sustainable in the long run. It is a realization that Kenya's big tribes must come to terms with sooner rather than later. As Kenyans divide themselves into voting blocs along ethnic lines, let them be aware that governments formed out of tribal majorities have no sustainable way of doling out tribe-specific favors. You just need to look at the agonizing consumption of the finer print of the Finance Act 2023. Did you see that awkward discussion about farmers from Mount Kenya versus those from Rift Valley and a bit of Western Kenya? Talk of a cul-de-sac. So, meantime, what happens to the tax-paying camel herders of Loyangalani, fishermen of Tana River, or cattle keepers of Loita Hills? Should they just be content with chanting ancient prayers during national holidays? Even though they mostly don't care, I don't really think it's okay or sustainable long term. And to paraphrase Guinea-Bissau freedom struggle hero Amika Cabral, nationhood can only be born out of the death of tribalism. That is my kicker.